So, you want to be an actor? Well, you're probably going to have to move to a big city. Today, we're going to tell you how to do that.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, moving out. Roxy, you ready to move out?
Oh, yeah. Good pick. I didn't even know we were doing this
nice?
one, Sean.
Yeah, you got to move out. Listen, if you want to be an actor, you can absolutely start in your home community. It's not a problem. But if you want to be a professional actor, a working actor, you're going to have to move to a major city. Historically, it's been LA and New York. Then Chicago got in the mix. And now it's even stronger. You could go to Atlanta. You could go to New Orleans. You can go to New Mexico. Get new citizenship and go to Vancouver or Toronto. But that's where things are happening. So you're going to have to get prepared and get all your ducks in a row to make that move. So today we're going to talk about that on AfterBuzz. I am here with my fabulous co-host, Roxy Striar, as always.
Last week I was fabulous and amazing. This week I'm just fabulous. I don't know what I did to lose the title.
Yeah. Well, you had a couple more layers of you had a cool
It was a brighter color situation.
So I mean, fabulous, and that's not bad.
I'll get it back next time.
Yeah, I know you will. And then one of my oldest and dearest acting friends is Chris Darga.
Friend?
Technically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's odd that this is going to be on the internet, and they're not going to enforce the restraining order.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's always good.
Is it one-sided, two-sided?
Oh, it's two-sided.
Oh, a two-sided restraining order.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be within 6 inches.
Oh. Yeah. So that's why your guy came in and measured 6 1/4. So we're really good.
Yeah, it's looking good now.
Yeah, looking really good. So listen, before we get started with any of talking about what you have to do to get ready to come to LA, New York, or a big city, we talked about having a segment each week about my week and what happened to me acting-wise in the business. So this week, in terms of the play that I was talking about turning into a pilot, my partner had to deal with some personal stuff, business stuff. So we're putting that on hold for now, but still in the works. Once he gets that going, we're going to get our writing schedule back on track. But an independent movie that I wrote a couple years ago, Crust, that is a horror comedy, I networked. I met one of my friends, did a short. He said, that's produced by this woman. I was going to do the short. It didn't work, but I talked to her and said, do you have financing for independent movies? We met, we talked, and she's interested in helping me sign on to my independent film.
Wow.
So that was good news. That happened yesterday. And then after I was put on hold and released last week, this week I did a self-tape at my house on a Monday night. Tuesday night they said, you're on hold. Get your passport ready. You're probably going to Vancouver the next day. I was all excited, ready to go. And like 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, they said they pulled the pin. So it's so close, and it's funny because it's ironic that I'm talking to Chris here because we were talking that kind of a slow summer, and one of my friends, Brian George, who I did Employee of the Month with, he got a series, and then Chris and I were talking, and he got like 6 jobs in 5 or 6.
5 jobs in the last couple months.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
One is it's not until October, but.
Yeah, but I mean, booked all these. So I was kind of like, it's my time. And then I was close. And so I'm getting there, and I have another one tomorrow. So
do you find when it's slow for you, it's usually fast for your friends, and when it's fast for you?
No, we're usually all in the semi
because the business is so cyclical. Summer is always dead. No matter what, summer is dead.
Yeah.
Usually after July, beginning of August, things start to pick up.
For episodic season and things like that. And even Netflix and shows like that kind of tend to have a traditional shooting schedule that I found, because they were like, with Netflix and things, it's going to be year round, which it is kind of, but it's not necessarily. But most of it does go through the seasons, just like regular TV.
Have you shaken it off yet? that you got those 2 things on hold?
Yeah, we're gonna have an episode about auditioning and how to shake it off and things
How
like
to
that.
forget and let it go and move on.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing for me is, I used to give myself, when I started this business, I'd give myself a day, and then it went to 12 hours. Then it went to, and now at this age, I give myself like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
90 minutes.
Yeah,
top.
90 minutes tops, and because there's nothing you can really do, and you get disappointed, and that's fair. You wanted the job, but at this level that you just don't have control over these
And it's
things.
never personal. And
Yeah.
the only thing you have control over is the audition. Then boom, it's done. It's out of your hands. Nothing you can do to control who they cast or what they want or what they're looking for. So you just got to learn to forget about it and move on. It helps if you have another audition coming up the next day. But
Right. And also for me, I had the meeting with the producer about my film. So that was something to look forward to. And I've got tickets to Parliament Funkadelic tomorrow night. So I would have missed that too.
And you've got this show,
and
which
I
is
have
the
this
most
show,
important.
yes, which is the most important. Now, do we talk about Chris's fabulous career?
Yeah.
So Chris, like me, we talked about that we've done pretty much every genre. Chris has, like me, probably done every genre: big budget, low budget, horror, major movies, small movies, kid shows,
adult films,
which
it was in Europe. You couldn't find them
you
anymore.
can't find them.
Does that have to do with the 6 inches between you guys?
That's yeah. Ixnay, Roxy. Stop.
Sorry.
You're opening up a can of worms.
Jeff, can we cut that part from the video?
Chris's lawyer is on his way in.
Oh.
So we got to really be careful about all that. But anyway, so we've done all different types of movies, and he and I met at the Groundlings. So we'll talk about how we know each other. We were in the Groundlings. I was there from, I think, 88. I started in the Sunday show. I left in 91.
So I think if anybody's listening to this, they probably know what the Groundlings is. But in case
it's
they
a
do not.
comedy improv sketch school in Los Angeles that has started the careers of so many people. Back when we were there, it was starting Kathy Griffin and
Lisa Kudrow,
Julia Sweeney,
Pee Wee Herman was there, Elvira was there, Phil Hartman.
Then it went to like Will Ferrell,
right.
and Kristen Wiig, and
a lot
Melissa
of your favorite
McCarthy.
SNL people.
Yeah, a lot of comedy people came from there, and
of course SNL came the month before I got into the Groundlings, and then the month after I left the Groundlings.
Well, then I was on a good friend of mine said, you need to learn how to act, because I was trying to audition and I couldn't do it, and they said, listen, you have to back off the comedy stuff and learn. It was Patrick Bristow said you need to learn how to just act and basic acting so you could audition, because
Did you grow up
bad.
taking classes or
No,
anything?
I just did plays, a ton of plays, so I didn't know how to do it. So I went to Playhouse West and started studying drama, and Chris actually proceeded into the main company of the Groundlings.
You were going to get into the main company, but you got a movie and you couldn't do it or something.
Well,
right?
no, I actually chose to, because it was all really weirdly political, but no, it wasn't that I got a movie. I actually said, you know what, I'm going to bow out I was extended one time, there was a vote, and I didn't get in. And then the second vote was coming up, and I thought, you know what, I've got to go learn how to be a dramatic actor.
Also, for anybody at home who doesn't know, it's a school in which Sunday company is an accomplishment within itself to get into, but then getting into main company is incredibly difficult. And of the thousands of people who go through the school, there's dozens that
don't make it. Yeah. So we were very fortunate, and we were at a time when you could move through at a reasonable pace.
It was quicker. It was like
now
18 months.
7 years is the average.
Is it really?
Yeah, because it's literally 7 years.
We got through in 2, or I did.
So you're like in your late 50s by the time you get.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's very intense now. And they have added levels, and then most people end up having to take Writer's Lab like 4 times, and then it's a very long process.
So we were back, and now it's very competitive because it is a breeding ground for Saturday Night Live. When we were there, we were all such fans of each other. We were so, like, you would finish a sketch and run behind so you could watch everyone else do their stuff. It was so fun. Everyone helped each other out, and now it seems to be a little more competitive.
I think it depends on the person, of course. There
Yeah,
are
it depends
people
on
who
the
are really
people
supportive.
and the teacher. Yeah, of course. I can't make blanket statements, but I shall. And then we kept in touch. I did years later, I did a play about a friend of ours, John Cervenka. I did a play about, we both had little babies, and so we did a play about dad. It was called Daddy and Me, about like a mommy and me daycare thing. And the day that daddies go, it was a big farce. We cast Chris in it because he was one of our friends. That was really fun.
Not because he was ridiculously talented.
No, just a friend.
Yeah.
Just a
Got
friend.
it.
Well, because we knew that he would curl up and cry if we didn't cast
And
him.
I had the van, so I could drive.
Yeah, he had the van. So.
Oh, what a good asset.
Yeah, and then after that, we got together one time and we had heard about these, workshops where you travel, and so we got together and we created a workshop about the 2-year plan. And the 2-year plan was what we're going to talk about today. Today specifically, we're going to talk about prepping for the 2-year plan to move. What you should do to get ready to move. And we actually did it in Nashville once because this is why we're actors and not business people. Once we thought, this is a great idea, people were going to hire us. Well, the problem was bringing in 2 people, 2 hotel rooms, 2 plane tickets wasn't very...
It's twice as expensive.
Yeah, twice as expensive. But when we did it in Memphis, I know of 3 people who have moved out, and one of them will be here next week to talk about how that day literally changed his life and he moved out.
So did you guys pull together what you had done to move out and what you had done to move out and decide what was the best method? Or did you guys think, these are the things we wish we did before we came out here?
Probably both of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we drew from our own experience, and then we drew from things that we wish we had done.
Right.
Exactly. So
that's kind of what we did. And I remember just sitting in my office and we were just spitting out things that go, well, that's not as important. Well, this is important. And then we honed it down into a really concise list. And then now I actually do a lot of Skype coaching. And, these people will say, well, now I need to know what to do next. And I just coached a girl who was in Arkansas and just moved out like 3 months ago. And I used, the stuff that we came up with. And it's really helped people.
And I think that people should always look at where they're taking their advice from before they take their advice. So not only were you guys in Groundlings together, but you have been working for decades as actors in this industry. Chris, you have a crazy list of credits, just like Sean does.
Yeah.
Like you said, in every single genre. So it's pretty wild to check out some of your different looks. You're a chameleon, my friend.
Yeah. I've been fortunate. It's good and it's bad to be a chameleon because you can't really get pegged in a certain thing.
Right.
When
so
you're,
they don't.
when
Yeah.
you're
So you're not a
versatile,
go-to guy.
Everything. But then it can be bad in a sense because they can't peg you in a certain thing.
Right. And we've talked about this tons of times. Where commercially they'll say, "Oh, we want you to. We're casting the guys in the office or the guys in the bleacher or the guys in the elevator." They're never going to put guys like us in that. We're never just going to be one of many faces. So our faces stand out, which is great, but then in the same vein, we're not going to fly under the radar. There's friends like Kenny Moscow and those guys. You remember they were just kind of middle of the road guys that could do just.
They looked like they'd be friendly and likable.
Yeah, friendly and likable.
We were always like if there's a good salesman and a bad salesman, we were the bad.
Yeah, we were always the bad or the goofy salesman or
we
the
were
flaky.
Product X.
Yeah. So
which is fun. I mean,
to me,
it's much more fun.
It's much more comedic. I never did one. I think I did one serious commercial, but I was still like upbeat and quirky. But I only did comedy.
Way.
I only did comedy commercials. Did you ever do a serious commercial?
No.
Never. Yeah, never.
What would you say the number one thing to both of you? People come up to you and say, "Oh my God, I know you from this thing." What is the most recognizable? Do you feel?
That's just it.
Because you and I talked about this off air one time. It depends on who you're talking to.
Right.
So for me...
And when you're talking to them.
Yeah, like a horror fan would know me from People Under the Stairs, where women from 18 to 40 know me from Never Been Kissed, and you probably have the same kind of thing.
Seinfeld a lot because they rerun the crap out of that.
And I'm getting Friends now for the same reason.
A funny story, I was shooting one of the Capital One commercials. I was one of the Viking guys back, 4 or 5 years ago, and we were down in New Orleans, and we were on this float they made that looked like a big catapult, and we're all in costume, and we're launching beads to the crowd. They had thousands of extras there, and we're in full makeup with beard and scar and helmet and everything, and there's a little lull in the shooting, and I hear a little voice from the crowd say, "Hey, it's the limo driver from Seinfeld."
I wish that made the commercial.
Exactly.
That'd be amazing.
But it's like, it's so random, and I get people who think they went to school with me, or
the same thing where they go, "Hey, we're going there." Right.
That's fine. I did that to Henry Winkler on a plane. I was like, "My basketball coach." He was like,
Did you really?
I was like, Phil, I know you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, 17 moving out here. That was my first. How do I know you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, so listen, we want to help you, attack your dream. And this show is about the show and the business. And this incorporates both to get you ready if you're going to try to be a professional actor, what you need to do at home before you move, the things you need to do to get ready.
Or if you were raised in a big city, what you need to do to prep to actually
focus,
take that leap.
Right, to take that leap. So number one, we want to say, is to log experience in actual acting. So you can take, I teach a lot in Memphis, and there's a great guy, Forrest Pruitt, Indie Acting School of Memphis. I did go do workshops there. This is where the woman went who now moved out here. They go to find any acting classes in your hometown. If you can't do that, obviously you want to do it, high school plays, your school plays.
Community theater?
Yep, you can do community theater, any kind of community theater. And now, even at home now, which we never had this opportunity, is get your iPhone, get some friends together, write something fun or funny or scary or anything. I mean, Spielberg did it with Super 8s. Put yourself on camera, practice writing scenes, practice acting in scenes. Do whatever you can to get as much experience as possible.
Watch endlessly. Watch movies. Watch TV shows. Watch old movies. Watch new movies.
We'll get to that part.
What do you think about? Did you guys grow up reading any of those 1-minute monologue books or anything like that, and trying to like practice those?
I never did that because I was just involved in theater. I started when I was little, and I remember directed Rumpelstiltskin at my elementary school. Directed and starred in it in 5th grade, and then I did.
You were hell to work with too.
Yeah. They still talk about it. Yeah. If you mention it to any of the people who went to, they just spit on the floor. Were you Rumpelstiltskin? I was Rumpelstiltskin.
Was that your first role?
No. I had done other things before that, but
that's nepotism.
Yeah.
Chris, do you remember your first one?
I was Uncle Chris in I Remember Mama in 8th grade play.
Yeah.
I was the bowl of mush in Goodnight Moon.
Nice.
There you go.
Yes. I was a great bowl of mush.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I could see it. That's kind of why you went from amazing and fabulous to just fabulous.
Yeah.
To a fabulous bowl
little
of
mushy.
mush.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Secondly, very practical, you got to save money. You have to save up. You want to come out here and at least have a cushion of the first 30 days that you're here. At least.
Well, 30 days, but I would say at least 3 or 4 months of worth of rent.
So listen,
rent is very expensive in LA now.
Right.
When we started, you could get a place for $400 a month. Now,
now
you're lucky to get something for at least $1,000.
And that's if you're willing to have roommates.
Right, and if you have roommates, obviously that price goes down. What I would say at the very least is have money to get yourself started, but then a $5,000 cushion at the very least.
Look into the city you're moving into as well, because right now we're talking about Los Angeles prices. Obviously, if you're going to New York, that almost doubles for a lot of these things.
But if you go to Atlanta or New Orleans or New Mexico, it's cheaper there.
Or if you're living outside of the city and commuting in, whatever it is that you're doing, check out the prices. You can do that on any of those RadPad, Zillow, whatever your choice is.
Well, to me, the other thing is also you're going to you have to start learning to live lean anyway, because you're going to have to live lean. Live lean.
5 times fast.
Live lean. When you get to LA, so you may as well start practicing now. Live below your means. means. Absolutely.
Yeah. We were fortunate when I moved out here. I got married in Michigan, and we got a lot of cash for our wedding. So we had our little nest egg to come out here, and we didn't have to find jobs right away. And but obviously people aren't going to have that circumstance, but. The more
or maybe
money,
just get married for the money and then
could.
see if you can do that.
And then dump them when
it's
you
a good
get
tip.
here.
Yeah.
Dump them. Yeah.
Good advice.
Absolutely.
But because it's so expensive to live here, you have to have a car.
And you have to have roommates and things like that. We'll talk about that when we get to the 2-year plan.
You just need to have a little bit of a nest egg before you come out. You can't come out here with nothing because then you'll end up on the streets.
Yeah.
And,
so you think even if it takes you a year longer to get here, stay where you are, save up, and then
there's things
you
can do. That's what we're talking about today. There's things you can do at home to get you ready, so you don't literally walk off the bus, look around, and go, what's going on here? I have no idea.
Right.
So this actually will prep you. So that year of saving money and doing the stuff we're talking about here will actually benefit and hopefully be a shortcut for when you actually get here.
Well, and we've also, both of us, taught workshops, and I've had students from the workshops call me and say, yeah, I'm ready to move out, and is there anything you could help me with or any advice you have? And I'll give them and tell them everything I know. If I know of an apartment that's leasing, or if I know of someone who's looking for a roommate, or
selling a car or anything,
or a manager or somebody who's looking for new people, and that kind of thing,
Yeah, one of my students right now is a friend from Facebook. He, or a high school friend, but he reached out to me on Facebook, said my niece is coming out, and now I privately teach her once a week, and she's part of my improv troupe at Playhouse West.
Wow.
So, but then I also just sent her pictures to my commercial agent, and, so obviously if you have a connection, use it. The other thing you have to do is get ready to figure out how you're going to get around the town that you're going to. Maybe in New York, you don't need to get a car.
Right.
And maybe Atlanta.
It's probably not good to get a car in New York.
Yeah,
frankly.
probably not. Yeah. But in Los Angeles, you probably need one. But nowadays, you have the option to say, weigh out for yourself and your budget. Is it more expensive for me to own a car with the insurance and parking and all that stuff, or do I just take Uber and buses?
And also there's things like Zipcar where you can rent a car for the day by the hour. There are people who ride these birds everywhere. If you're going to be living locally to where you're working or anything like that, there's all different forms of transportation, and maybe a car isn't the cheapest way. I've been thinking about that personally recently.
When I first came out here, we bought a scooter.
Yeah,
I tooled around on a scooter, went to auditions, and I couldn't go on the free. Well, I could go on the freeway. It was
I had a Vespa.
180 cc's. No, it was a Kawasaki.
I'm trying to picture you on a scooter on the 405 now.
It's quite fun.
It was.
Yeah. You just.
But you got to do what you got to do.
I had a Vespa, which was great. I did the same thing. It's
a great way. Even a bicycle. I have a friend who's our age. He has a car, but he never takes it. He lives in Silver Lake, and he uses his bicycle. Goes to auditions, and he gives himself a lot of extra time, and
and there are tons of ways to pay off if you do have a car, though, that you could Lyft, Uber, whatever it is to try to pay for that car.
Sure.
So
and that dovetails nicely into our next thing. Evaluate your skills of what you're going to do to have a side job when you get here, because we'll talk about this when we get on the 2-year plan itself, but you need to pick or start to figure out what is it you're going to do that pays for this 2-year plan of pursuing acting. It has to be flexible, and it has to be one that you can either do from home or get shifts covered. It has to be able to change and be malleable, so you can take your classes and go on your auditions. So are you going to be an Uber driver? Are you going to be a nanny? Can you bartend? Can you wait tables? There's so many different things you can do. But you should start figuring that out before you get here. Again, you don't want to walk here and go, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Right. Like if you are picking to be a nanny, you should set up your profile on Care or any of those sites and have the experience so that you can when you get here, you can start nannying.
Right.
You have references in your
What did you guys do, if you don't mind me asking?
I was at home. I graduated UCLA, and they had just started to sell used vinyl. And I was like, ooh. And it wasn't like old school like it was now. It was just exciting that they were selling used records. And I was like, oh, now I can get all the records I want. I bought a huge trunk of records, and I landed in LA with $200. But my friend was here in the meantime, set up an apartment. I lived with 4 guys in a 2-bedroom, crappy apartment. And I walked around because I didn't have a car and found a waiting job that was really bad. Like I made $10 to $15 a shift twice a week, and I said, oh, I can't do this. And then I started at Chin Chin in Brentwood and walked to work.
Which is a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, I got into the Groundlings, and they said, well, this is how much you owe to start. I said, I can't pay it. And they said, well, we'll defer you to January. So I just worked my butt off for that September through December, picking up shifts and doing everything I could to move up quickly to become a waiter. And I became a waiter right at the beginning of the year, and then I could pay for Groundlings. And
wow.
Then, so that's what I did for work. What did you do?
Well, when I first came out, I had
the carpentry or something.
I had the scooter. So and then I graduated to a motorcycle and worked as a messenger. So I was on a motorcycle 8 hours a day, and it was horrible. I had 2 accidents, and anyway, so I decided I got to do something else. And when I was in college theater, you also had to help build sets. So we learned I learned carpentry, basic carpentry. So I got a job doing finished carpentry with Mindy Sterling's ex-husband.
Oh, okay.
Brian.
Yeah.
Was it flexible?
Through the Groundlings. Yeah, he would let me go for auditions because his wife was an actress at the time. So,
yeah.
And then I started working with Adam Carolla. We did carpentry business together.
Yeah.
I work with him on another AfterBuzz show. He's great.
Yeah.
Love him.
Yeah. Adam's a good guy. And anyway, so, but then I started, that's when I was in the Groundlings at the time. So I got my first agent through the Groundlings. Right. I got my manager through the Groundlings. And I started getting more and more auditions, and I couldn't do the carpentry work as much, because I was working.
So you can
more
wean
as an
off
actor.
it. That's the other thing. Yeah. Once you get your job, and we'll talk about that more next week. But you can wean off it. I had 6 shifts, and I slowly went down to 1.
But it was like, I got here in '86. It was probably not till like 91, 92, maybe even 92 when I started solely just acting.
That was basically my run too. I mean, after 86 to I think 91.
6 years, 5-6 years.
Yeah,
to
5-6
make a
years.
living as an actor.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing you want to do, and this is where we disagree a little bit, but there's a way to handle it, is networking. Like see if you're a people person at your hometown, in your high school, in your community, at college, friends, things like that. To see if you can once a week, or at least try to get a phone number once a week, and see if you can put yourself out there. There's a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and we talked about this last week on how I'm literally on this show because of that approach, networking and meeting people and being open and friendly. And I have always kind of been like that. My brother was going to go into politics, so he was just amazing and a Wall Street businessman, so I kind of learned from him. And then you want to practice that skill. It's not the end-all, be-all, but at the very least, you want to be easy to work with, fun and pleasant. So, Chris and I were talking about this before the show. He doesn't like the cheesy, like, cocktail parties and all that kind of stuff.
Funny. Yeah, I always, going to parties and meeting people and, schmoozing, as they call it. But I was never really into that. I just wanted to do the work, do a good job, and go home. I just got an invitation for a show I worked on a couple weeks ago. They're having their rap party, season rap party, and I'm like,
Are you going to do it though?
No.
But the other thing is,
would you advise yourself to do it if you were on the outside?
I would advise anyone else who's just starting in the business to do it. If this were beginning of my career,
yes,
I would absolutely do it. I would have been thrilled to go to that.
Right.
But now it's like,
But see, this is what's great is
because none of the stars will be there. it'll just be the the crew people who you didn't even meet.
Yeah, and when you're a guest star, you're not. It's very nice, right? But
when you're just there for
a
couple days, and all these people have been working together for months.
They're not
months
your friends. They're your acquaintances.
Yeah.
So listen, we approach that a little differently, but I will say at the very least, Chris is always professional, always does great work, and he's not in his dressing room closed and angry.
No.
He's meeting people. He's still walking away from a set with a phone number.
I purposely like to hang out on the set. Even when I'm not working, I just go around and watch and observe. And
so in a way, that's networking too.
Definitely.
So we both have learned a lot from, and a lot of our connections are from when we started the Groundlings. All the people that we met along the way.
They're all dead now.
Yeah,
but
yeah. And it's sadly the young ones because we killed them.
Yeah,
oh.
They're in the trunk right now.
Yeah, they're in the trunk.
Which
so we
trunk?
have to wrap that up.
Which one of you guys? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot for it?
Can't really say.
Both trunks?
Yeah. The lawyer's on his way.
The trunk of the
You
scooter.
gotta keep it. Yeah.
Scooter.
Yeah, scooter trunk. That was that was a small kid from Wisconsin. Anyway,
but basically you're going to have to get a job. There's no way you're going to come.
Yeah.
I mean, once in a trillion times someone comes out here and gets an audition and lands a regular on a series.
This is it.
Boom, that's all.
But you got to get work. You got to learn how to network, and then you also have to. We would say while you're at home, learn this business. Learn what this business is. What are the current trends? Who owns what? Like AT&T just bought. God, who did they just buy? They bought the parent company to HBO. But just learn how the business works and what shows are popular. But what shows are popular and why they're popular. If someone said to you, "Oh yeah, it's kind of like The Good Place," you better know at least what that is.
Yeah.
If you couldn't say, "Oh, is that the one with Ted Danson?" I haven't seen it. But at least yes, it's Ted Danson.
I would have
Look it
said
up.
Kristen Bell, but you could go
Kristen
Ted Danson
Bell or
if you
Ted
want.
Danson.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
of course.
it's so easy to look things up now.
Yeah.
It's so easy to, like, if I have an audition for a show that I've never heard of, you can
go to Netflix
go on
or
Netflix, go
YouTube.
online, go to iTunes, and download an episode and watch it. So get an idea what the show is.
And you guys always watch an episode if it's a show that's been on?
At least
If
a
it's a
trailer
show that I've never seen.
you've never seen, you at least watch a trailer
or
of
bits
it,
of it,
or bits of it, just to get the tone.
Right. Because some comedies might be, like The Office, very subtle and very everything.
And then others like
underplayed.
Big Bang Theory, which are super broad.
Yeah.
And you have to know the difference. You have to know the room you're walking in, and that's what we're saying. We're getting you ready to learn that now. So go through like Emmy nominations and things like that, and then pick the shows and watch a couple episodes, just so when you get here, as we talked about last week, you need to speak the language, so at least you know what's going on in your business. If you were you said, I want to get into music and I want to make 8-track tapes, it's not a wise decision. It's not really happening right now. So you don't want to walk out. What? So you don't want to walk out here and not know what's going on. So that's the next piece of that's why you want to learn the business, Hollywood, how it works, who's doing what. So there's trends, and we've lived through them. We were talking about after Seinfeld. Ironically, every character guy in town was called in to be Kramer. They all wrote it just like Kramer. The lines were similar to what Kramer would say, and they would say, "Oh, but don't do Kramer. Do something different." So every TV show was looking for their Kramer, and that was a trend. Right now, it's about ethnic diversity. That's the trend that's going on now. That doesn't mean that we have no jobs. It just means that the parts that we get might be completely different than the ones we were getting before.
So how does somebody learn the trends? Just by seeing what's happening the most?
By watching. Look at commercials.
Watching.
Every guy in a commercial has a scruffy beard.
And a beanie.
And dark rimmed glasses. It seems to be
like
the commercial look now.
Like beards became a huge thing a few years ago. And big, thick beards were the thing.
I'm going to work on that.
A little off topic, but the thing now with commercials which is very sad for us, is that 75% of them now are non-union.
Yeah.
And we're both union guys, and I'm not going to scab. And so, but I would say for someone coming out here who doesn't have their SAG card yet, commercials are a great way to get experience being on a set, working, and a lot of times you don't have to be the greatest actor in the world to be in a commercial.
That's a lot of times the
most
type.
of them it's just holding it up and smiling. Anybody can do that. So
and they pay pretty well.
They pay pretty well,
non-union does not, but it's
not as good.
But you're getting paid
compared to a day of working at Chin Chin.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But
food's better.
And
that's way true.
But the other thing, if you're going to do commercials, the other piece of advice I would say, what is your type? Know your type. So if you're going to come out here and try to do commercials and you're a short woman who's heavy set, then you're not going to go out for like Vanna White roles, probably.
Right.
I don't think the kids know who Vanna White is.
No, I know who Vanna White is.
Vanna White is. Okay. Yeah. Then who's...
I don't know.
I don't know. Who's
the beer model?
You're not going to go out for parts of Gal Gadot.
But you're not going to be a bikini model.
Yeah, exactly. So you could just have to know your type. We knew
Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, by the way. Guys.
By the way, yes, I know who Gal. He's my celebrity crush.
Not to you, to the people.
Oh, to the people.
If they don't know Vanna White, then I don't know if they know Gal Gadot.
If they don't know Gal Gadot, please get a job at the gas station. So no, the
who is that? I don't know.
It's Wonder Woman.
Just kidding.
So but you have to be honest and know what you're going to sell, because you're going to come out here and you're going to sell yourself. So if you don't know what type you are, and you're going to know by the stuff you've done in your acting classes at home, what roles did you get cast in? I was cast as Renfield and Dracula, the creepy guy who ate the flies, and then Hugo in Bye Bye Birdie, the nerdy friend. I was cast as the quiet, awkward Peter Van Dam and Diary of Anne Frank. Like, so I was the quirky, offbeat, and I knew that coming here.
What do you guys think about when you're coming here? If you are the short, heavy-set female living in the Midwest somewhere, do you think it's smart to try to change your look to what is hot right now or trendy, or do you think
I don't think that's possible.
Just embrace?
It depends. I mean, if you're
short,
10 pounds overweight, you could change that. But if you're
if
you're Melissa McCarthy,
right. And she embraced it.
Yeah.
She embraced it and made it work, and she's so talented and so funny. And the other thing is right now, sadly, what the thing that's least wanted is Caucasian women from 25 to 35. Because it's just an overdone.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. But you and I were talking about this recently, where you're like, oh, maybe I should go back to more ethnic look, your original ethnic look and things like that, because that's what the new trend is. And
what's your ethnicity?
Oh, I'm Jewish, but I was a lot darker looking, and I had very dark brown hair,
which is great right now.
A little bit of Spanish, so it was more like
you could be right. A little bit, you could be anything, and that opens it up.
But my side job, my thing that I do for a living is hosting. So right now, this look is in. So it's hard to. It's an interesting.
Yeah.
A wig for hosting.
Yeah, a wig for hosting. There you go. But you have to be honest about what you're going to sell. And if you come out here and you have no idea who you are, you should know that anyway from the homework that you've done at home,
right?
From the plays and.
Well, when I was in college and graduate school, I went all through graduate school for acting, and I played, I was Hamlet, I was Dracula, I was Orlando, and As You Like. I was always leading man roles in graduate school.
Yeah.
And when I got to LA,
but you were handsome back then.
Well, yeah. so everything's caught up with me. But when I got to LA, there were leading men. I mean, there were Tom Cruises and and so
Ryan Goslings.
So I said, well, you know what, I'm going to be a character actor then.
Yeah.
So I put on a little weight and started maybe not shaving all the time and
people forget Tom Hanks is a character actor. That's how he started.
Yeah.
That's how he started. But
I was more like John Candy or Jack Black or
we were always the wacky friend and the wacky office worker, like you mentioned before, and brand the good brand and then the goofy brand X. That's who we always were. And then most importantly, I know I've talked a lot about business stuff. You've got to study the craft. What Chris was mentioning earlier. He jumped the gun, but he was right on point, which is you've got to watch a ton of movies.
Yeah.
Watch the actors you like. Take the AFI top 100 films and just walk through them, and see why they were nominated. Why things. A lot of times it's the climate of the nation that influenced why a movie was Best Picture or even nominated. You take your, I love Meryl Streep. Well, then watch her in the 70s, watch her in the 80s, watch her in the 90s, watch one movie per decade. Because, like we talked about last week, this is the language we speak. People are, and especially not producers as much, but directors and other actors, they want to talk this language, and the language is film. So if we sat down and said, hey, Gal Gadot is, perfect for it's kind of a Gal Gadot type, you better know what that means.
Yeah, or if a director's giving you directions, is lean more toward the Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, or
right.
You got to know what that is.
Yeah,
and
right.
If you have no frame of reference, you can go quickly. Oh, Travis Bickle, you can quickly look it up, but back, but still.
If you can, but sometimes you don't have that
right,
30
you don't have
seconds.
That time,
you
right.
gotta.
Well, I just did. Last year I did School of Rock, broad comedy. The way I did it on my tape was how I booked it. Very broad. It was a waiter that had just done a horror movie and was all excited that his horror movie was coming out. And these kids had seen the horror movie and they were all terrified of him at this thing. And then when they came to my close-up, the guy came out and he just said, it was Jay Kogan.
Jay Kogan, yeah.
Yeah, a friend from Groundlings.
I did that show too. I played a waiter.
Yeah. So he said, I did it the way they had originally done it over and over. And then he said, you know what, do Jack Nicholson. Now, what was interesting is I was supposed to be a creepy guy. So it wasn't Jack Nicholson. It was Jack Nicholson from The Shining. Mm-hmm. And I knew what he meant because it was a horror thing. That's what I'm talking about. You really want to know. And we talked about...
If you had said, who's Jack Nicholson?
Right. Or if you said, wait, Jack Nicholson from Easy Rider or Jack Nicholson from As Good as It Gets? No. You have to know what that meant. So we talked about this last week. If you have to love this business. So if you study these at home, you can do this right now. You can go to the library and get plays now and start reading. Look that up. 10 biggest playwrights of all time. And obviously, got to know a few Shakespeare plays. You have to know a few Tennessee Williams plays, Neil Simon. You can do this every day. Ashley Judd, I was in class with her, and she read a play every morning from 7 to 9 a.m. every day.
Where were you in class with her?
Playhouse West. Yeah. So that's the other thing, is that you really want to immerse yourself. So all these skills came together. So Roxy thought it'd be interesting if we talked about how we used all these things. And so as I said, I came with $200. I walked to my waiting job. I did that because I could walk, and then I would take the bus to the Groundlings. That was my transportation. My living situation was I lived in a really low budget, bad neighborhood, 2-bedroom apartment with 4 guys. I slept on an air mattress that deflated every night because I borrowed it from somebody. So I'd go to bed on it and I'd wake up on the floor.
For how long?
That was probably like 6 to 8 months. And then I made enough that I bought myself a mattress that still stayed on the floor. And then I moved to another apartment with 4 guys, a little better. And then I got a scooter. I got a Vespa. That was my transportation. And then when I got my first commercial, that's when I got a really crappy hatchback Honda for $1,000. But I had been out here at UCLA. I started at the Groundlings, but I loved movies anyway. I always loved movies. Me and my friends in college always went to movies all the time. And as I said last week, I just knew that Groundlings was not only a fun place to go, but it was a wise move because it was well known. So that was kind of how I started. Yeah. And my big regret is I didn't save the money, and I wish I would have. That's the one thing.
Before coming here.
Before coming back, I left UCLA, went home for the summer, and then came back. And I wish I would have had real money saved.
Well, my wife and I, she came out here with to be an actress, to be an actor too, and she didn't have. I had the luck sooner, booking things and getting work and getting an agent, and she was 27 when we moved out here. We were both 27, and that's washed up for women. I mean, that's like you're over the hill already. I mean,
back then it's not as much now.
Not so much now, but
welcome to my life.
Yeah.
But
it's not
say
as
that,
much.
But
I get it.
But
back then, absolutely, it was much tougher.
Yeah, much tougher, and there was a lot less work back then. There's tons more work now than there was back then. But anyway, so she took like real jobs. God bless her.
What do you mean real jobs?
Well, she worked at a publicity firm. She took
Corporate,
like regular 9 to 5 jobs. And that really helped. But then, then I started making more money, and she still wanted to work. So, but anyway, that's a different circumstances. I don't know how many married people are going to be moving to LA, but sometimes if you have a significant other, it helps.
So you feel like she was able to help support you in your career, and then were you able to pay that forward to her in hers as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of go where the hand is hot.
And she's working again now. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
That tells you how my career is like right now. No. No, I mean, it's like living in LA. We have a mortgage. We've got the bills to pay. And, and living in LA is extremely expensive.
Right.
I mean, if I go back and I look at what I've made over the years as an actor, and I was living in Michigan, I'd be living in the wealthiest area of Michigan.
Right.
Here, I live in a very small house. I live out in the high desert, which is even farther from LA. I'm like 45 miles from here. So, I have a small house. I have an acre, and it's out in the country. It's out in the desert, and I love it. But that same house, put it in Michigan, and it's worth $100,000.
Yeah.
Anywhere
in LA, that house is $500,000, $600,000, $700,000.
Well, what's interesting is it's funny because history is kind of repeating itself for me. Is that I am in an apartment with my girlfriend and my daughter's split custody with my ex-wife.
Girlfriend.
Easy. And then
I can't even get in on that joke. She's amazing, and I love her.
She's inflatable.
Looks pretty good to me.
It's full circle because I slept on an air mattress when I came, and now I have an inflatable girlfriend.
Good for you. Good for you, moving up in the world.
No, so what's interesting is right down the hall in the 2-bedroom near me are 4 young actors doing the same thing. It's 3 women and 1 guy, and they all share this apartment. And they're doing the same thing that I did. They're all starting out here, but
they look at you and say, "That's what I got to look forward to."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've seen the moving van move up after they. No, but it's really funny because for them, then they're each paying like $600-700, which is manageable for them. So, and then at one point they even had a 5th, like just crashing on a couch bed in the middle of the floor. That's what you have to do. And that's what we're talking about, the living lean and things like that. So for you, Roxy, you live here. You're not making a big move. So in terms of these things that we spoke about, like because we said that we want to touch on my week as an actor and then your week as, or the subject as someone who's trying to transition into acting. So what do you think with these topics that you relate to, hard to deal with?
So much of it is challenging. I mean, it was a little different for you guys because I think your side careers, your side jobs, not careers, were things that you wanted to wean off of, right?
Right.
And the one that I have selected, which I don't know if I suggest for people, but I don't know that I don't. It just is kind of what started picking up for me. The more I book, the harder it is to step away from it because it's hard to walk away from finances. It's hard to walk away.
But it seems like you love doing this.
And I do. I do love doing it. I love doing both. So I'm having a hard time figuring out what that line is so that I can make enough time for my acting and using the hosting to pay for my groundlings classes, which are, by the way, ungodly expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Which, like, I don't know why coming out here I didn't know that.
Right.
Well, what about? I mean, there's other like Upright Citizens Brigade. There are
really.
I mean, Groundlings is like the place.
Yeah.
But
Flux Comedy Dojo at Playhouse West with yours truly.
Yeah, but it's also the time too. And figuring that all out. So I have a hard time organizing my schedule to make sure that I'm feeding each bucket. And putting something in each bucket every day.
Well, that's what's so interesting what you said about the type thing, because absolutely advantageous for you right now if you got a little tanner, like you said, you can get really tan.
Yeah.
You know, you get tanner and you could let your hair go dark, then you'd be like in the wheelhouse of so many parts right now.
Yeah.
Which is, and so, but I understand, but this is, see, that's the other thing. Like, we could take off an apron, or he could put down a hammer, and then we're ourselves. It's a lot different when you're hosting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's been an interesting little journey for me, and I think that the side job that I've picked does. Unlike being a waiter or working in construction, which you could also network while doing that and meet people, but mine is directly helping.
Right.
The bigger I get, the more hireable I am in both fields.
Right.
So.
And you're still in the entertainment business.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting to try to figure out that balance. That's what I'm currently, I wouldn't even say struggling with, but just looking into.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just trying to figure all of that out.
Now, are you actively pursuing acting? I mean, do you have an agent, a manager?
So I came out here for that reason. I went to USC. I was an acting major and a film minor, and did the whole community theater growing up. I was in a group called the Freelance Players. I was in every high school play was that.
And what was your
theater
type?
Person. Back then, like I was Tiger Lily in Peter Pan, so
Right.
I looked a little different.
Right.
And I was always quirky.
Okay.
I was not leading lady. I was a little quirky, but I was
You're the best friend of
the
leading lady. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
was the leading lady was my best friend also. And
Right.
she always was booking leading lady, and she's amazing at Juilliard now. But that was me. And then when I came out here, the hosting thing fell so easily, and so that's the
How did
direction.
you get into this?
Yeah.
I met Keven, who owns this whole studio and started this on a plane.
Wow.
And we were sitting next to each other, and he had just filmed the movie, and the camera crews were walking by him. And
Yeah.
in my head, I was coming out here to go to USC, and I wanted to be an actress and was coming out here for that reason. So I said, "Oh, who?" Just struck up a conversation because I said, "Oh, were those your crews? What were you guys doing?" And then 6 hours later, he was like, "You should come audition to be the first host at our network," which
Wow.
was here, and that's how it happened. Yeah, pretty wild.
Now you're I don't want to pry, but
No, go ahead.
you're making a living doing this.
Yeah.
You don't have any other job.
No. Well, I have 17 hosting jobs. So I'm here, I'm over at Nerdist and Collider and Screen Junkies and all of the places that hosting are, but I don't have a restaurant job or a nanny job.
So you're paying your bills
with
doing
the
this.
entertainment industry, yes.
So you have flexibility though too, don't you?
I do, but I still work tons of hours, so I have
Sure.
flexibility to a certain extent, like anybody.
Right. Well,
You
we
know?
talked one time about an acting teacher that she met through my play and wanted to work with her. And I said, "Oh, well, these are the times." And she thought, "Oh, shoot, it doesn't
I was like, I'm
fit."
live on air those times because
Right. So it
that's
didn't
what I
fit.
do.
Why don't you do a live on air acting class?
There you go.
We were
That's what
so-
we're gonna do.
So that's
Well,
how
that
to
is
be an
actually
actor.
going to
We're
be.
talk more
We're
about
actually
that.
part of the just to let you guys know, that is going to be part of this. We're going to have acting teachers come in and actually do acting scenes. We're going to have an episode where
Right here though?
yeah. Well, Roxy will bring in a scene, and I'm going to work with her, and we're
Right.
going to do that kind of stuff there. So that's
I'm
why we're
excited.
saying the show and the business at the same time. But yeah, I mean, so right, you're in a transition thing to go, oh, okay, so the thing I did to pay the bills or whatever is now it's sounding like you're at a crossroad.
Kind
A
of.
little bit at a crossroads, and you're trying to figure out.
Yeah,
but
because
it's so-
acting is still where my heart is. It's
But
still
I-
my
Do you have
representation
representation?
in the theatrical world. No.
Oh, so
Right,
Yeah.
but the other thing is,
You could get a commercial agent very easily, I would think.
yeah, I would think you could get a commercial agent very easily
Why would you guys think that?
because you could. I mean, just because of your experience doing this, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, on-camera experience.
Yeah, like literally a ton of on-camera
And
experience.
you
It would
look
be very
like
easy.
You could be the mom. You could be,
yeah,
the young mom.
the young mom, or the.
Thanks for throwing that word young in there.
Young and
Yeah. The teen, the
teen
mom
mom,
of
yeah.
mom of the teens. Yeah, dropping your kid off at school at college.
I appreciate that.
You're still in grade school and you have a child. Yeah.
Yeah,
You could do that.
Yeah, you could do that too.
No, but I'm just saying that, I think that might be like we were saying, try and get a commercial
So
agent.
a couple of years ago, so I was a little smaller.
And are you SAG or AFTRA? Or?
No, eligible.
So there's a lot of non-union commercial work. You know, I don't want to I only encourage people who don't have a whole lot of experience to do that. But I encourage people to join the union. You know, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you're SAG eligible, don't join until.
That's why I'm not joining until.
Don't join until you have to.
Yeah, that's been my
thought
process.
I think for you, for sure, you could do that.
Do you have pictures?
Pick your guys' brains.
Do you have pictures and headshots?
Yeah.
I could
pass
them on.
Okay. So here's a
networking.
Then here's a question.
Doing it, you don't even know. Oh, I'm doing it.
So then here's a real question. If, because you've established yourself in hosting, if you slowly went to darker hair, would it hurt you in hosting now?
Yeah, I don't understand
at
why
this
that
point,
would be.
At this point for you?
I don't think it would necessarily hurt. Honestly, I started booking more when I went pink than when I was.
How funny.
Yeah, so I'm
for
willing
this, I could
do,
see. Maybe.
Yeah,
for hosting,
I'm willing to do.
They want cool people like us.
And that's actually when I went pink is when I got. I was going out for Dunkin' Donuts, Home Depot, also all of those, and they were looking for tattooed, edgy girl. And I was pink, and that was working well for me then.
Right.
And then that look kind of faded really quick, and then.
Yeah. The thing is, you can't like be everything.
Yeah.
No, you can't be everything, but you can also adapt to the trend. You know what I mean? I talked about it last week. I grew this beard. It had nothing to do with business. I just was,
lazy.
Lazy. Yeah, just lazy.
Honestly, I'm willing to change my look all the time, anytime, whatever.
Right.
I need to.
Well,
do.
I guess my main question was, do you think it would hurt your hosting gigs that you have now?
I don't know.
Just do like one hair at a time.
See if they notice.
Then slowly.
I like a good skunk look.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like a Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
Shave it off.
Yeah.
And then tattoos all over your head.
I thought about that when edgy was cool for a little bit. And all those girls had the half-shaved look.
But then once the porn stars start doing it, then
then you always got to bail on that. Whatever.
It's hard to grow it back that quick, though.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think if it wouldn't hurt your job, I mean, how could you find out? Could you just ask them? Could you talk to them and say, would it bother you if my hair got dark? And,
Yeah, but I wonder commercially, would it help me? You guys think to be
right now?
Because
right now, looking at you could literally be so many ethnicities. I wouldn't even know. You could be Hispanic. You could be Middle Eastern. You could be Jewish. You could be
Italian.
Italian. I mean, there's so many different things you could be, and that is what's going on.
A lot of it's ethnically ambiguous.
Right, ethnically ambiguous. Like but a world citizen. That's what they're looking for. The person that can play anywhere. And that's what's going on. Yeah. So that's something you should think about. But
thanks, friends.
Yeah, no problem. So listen. We're answering Roxy's questions. We'd like to answer yours.
Yeah.
So look us up on iTunes. You can give us a review there. You can leave comments there for us. And we'd love to answer any of your questions for any of our upcoming shows. On any topic, it doesn't matter. We're going to do a Q&A section in the show.
Or even comments. If you start to implement any of these things that Sean and Chris are teaching you, then let us know what you're doing so that we can talk about that on air too, to see what's working, what's not, all that. Yes,
exactly. You can go to iTunes as well, leave comments, questions there. You can YouTube. Twitter, if you want to reach out to me. I'm at that guy SMW on Instagram, and then we have the fabulous and amazing Roxy Striar.
You guys can find me everywhere at Roxy Striar, and Chris, we're teaching Twitter more after this.
Really. If you have a fire and a big jacket, you can reach them by smoke signals out in the desert. Smoke signals out in the desert.
A dial phone.
So next week, guys, we're gonna we teased about what we're gonna do. We did this week. Next week, we're actually gonna have someone who applied these things and is now living out here pursuing his 2-year plan right now. His name is Tim Peck, and we met him in Nashville like 5-6 years ago. And that's what we're going to talk about. What to do when you get here and how to maintain 2 years of pure focus. And I'll explain next week why 2 years is a great number for you to focus on. So I, as always, am grateful to be here. Thank you, Roxy. Thank you, Chris. And thank you for letting me be part of your artistic journey. See you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.